Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name's Beth Cohen and today we're talking about the Eurovision Song Contest. It's a trip through sequins, spotlights and soft diplomacy. Can a region with its own language, culture and identity sing its way into one of the most watched TV shows in the world? This week on Filling the Sink, we explore Catalonia's ongoing efforts to participate in the Eurovision Song Contest. From Catalan language entries to the stories of Catalan artists who've graced the Eurovision stage. Joining me today are Lorcan Doherty and Gigi Giulia. Hello.
Hi Beth. Hello Europe.
And Australia.
Barcelona calling.
So Eurovision, how exciting. What can we say about it?
Well, there's a lot of glitter, drama, and sometimes questionable dance moves, of course, but also politics. And Catalonia's relationship with the contest is, let's say, complicated.
Yes, Catalan artists have represented Spain, not just Spain, at Eurovision, with varying degrees of success, I'd say. Catalonia's public broadcaster has even tried to join the EBU, which is the European Broadcasting Union, in order to compete with a separate independent Catalan entry. That hasn't worked out.
Okay, but before we get into flags and other political debates, let's start with the basics. What exactly is Eurovision?
Right, so for anyone who's not European or hasn't fallen into a glittery YouTube rabbit hole, Eurovision is an international song contest for European countries that started in 1956.
Yeah, and you probably, if you've watched it, you'll know that not just European countries, Australia has been competing since 2015. And we should also mention Israel, who have participated in the competition since 1973. Of course, right now there's controversy over their participation with the ongoing war in Gaza, and there have been calls for a boycott.
Okay, so although it's mostly European countries, you don't have to be part of Europe to compete.
Yeah, and I suppose it's kind of like the equivalent of the musical Olympics, if you like, except a bit more glamour, a few more belted high notes, and the occasional man in a hamster wheel.
That sounds fascinating. And of course, there are beautiful songs as well as some memorable and very unusual ones.
Yeah, no, you always get some gems every year, don't you?
Okay, so Eurovision's big, but how big are we talking here?
Well, we're talking massive. So last year, over 160 million people watched it, and it's actually one of the most watched non-sporting events on the planet.
Wow.
The thing I love about it is it's so incredibly unpredictable. One year you've got a traditional ballad that wins, and the next year it's a group of masked hard rock monsters, and I think that mix is a real part of the charm.
And it's not just about the music, is it?
Well, yeah, whether the organizers like to admit it or not, there are always diplomatic tensions, voting alliances and also symbolism in the songs and the performances.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Eurovision is an opportunity for countries, I suppose, to project themselves around Europe and even on the world stage and express their identity. Language, costume, even staging choices might reflect certain things about a country's culture or a certain message.
To find out more about Catalonia's involvement in Eurovision, we spoke with Jordi Ramos, a journalist for the Catalan radio station RAC1. He's an expert on all things Eurovision and the perfect person to explain through Catalan eyes what the song contest is all about.
When we give Jordi a call, he's already in Basel, catching up with old friends and colleagues.
Passa amb els eurofans I passa amb els periodistes, no? Hi ha una sèrie de gent.
It happens with the Euro fans and it happens with the journalists, Jordi says. You see people from all over, year after year, and it's almost like reuniting with a family. It's a great vibe. You talk to someone from Poland, someone from France, Azerbaijan, and the artists say the same thing, Jordi says. Obviously, everyone wants to win, but it's a real nice party vibe.
La relació amb els catalans amb Eurovisió és curiosa, perquè...
Catalan's relationship with Eurovision is a strange one, Jordi says, conditioned right from the early days of the competition. Eurovision began in 1956 and Spain first took part in 1961, with dictator Francisco Franco using the competition to whitewash the country's image abroad.
També és veritat que en el cas concret català hi ha una data important que és el 68.
1968 is a key date, Jordi says, when Joan Manuel Serrat is invited to perform La La La. He accepts, But 10 days before the competition, he sends a letter stating that he will only perform if he can sing in Catalan.
Que o ho fa en català o no ho fa.
There are multiple theories about what exactly happened, but what we know is that the Spanish broadcaster not only refused the request, but within 24 hours, they already had Maciel lined up to perform the song in Spanish, and she ended up winning.
En certa manera això s'ha anat traduint, perquè òbviament
In a way, this skepticism has persisted. Some people who feel the Spanish entry doesn't represent them extend that feeling to the whole contest. But, as Jordi says, you can still enjoy the World Cup, even if you don't support Spain or any other national team.
Però també és veritat que a Catalunya hi ha moltes sensibilitats, també hi ha molta gent.
It's also true that in Catalonia there are a lot of different perspectives, Jordi points out. There are many people who really get behind the Spanish entry, and many who are really enthusiastic about the contest itself. In fact, audience figures for Eurovision are higher in Catalonia than in Spain in general.
Sí que és veritat que quan el representant és català,
It's true though that when the Spanish Eurovision entry is a Catalan artist, we get much more into it, Jordi says, mentioning the massive support for artists like Beth, who thanked the crowd in Catalan, Mickey Núñez, very rooted in Catalonia, Jordi says, and Chanel, who achieved third place in 2022, Spain's best result since 1995.
jo des del meu punt de vista com a eurofan va ser...
Sensational and extraordinary is how Jordi describes hearing Catalan sung for the first time on the Eurovision stage. Andorra's 2004 entry, Jugarem a Estimarnos, was a hit, at least in Catalonia, if not across Europe.
I és que certament en el seu moment va ser bastant un hit.
And self-described Eurofan Jordi would love nothing more than to hear Catalan back in the competition, in an entry from Spain, Andorra, or even from Catalan public broadcaster TV3 if Eurovision organisers allowed it.
En les Frances l'últim que es perd,
Hope is the last thing to be lost, Jordi says, and he likes to believe that one day Catalan will be back at Eurovision.
Thank you to Jordi Ramos for speaking with us. It was really interesting to look back over the Catalan artists who've sung on the Eurovision stage over the years.
Yeah, so there have been 14 Catalan artists in 13 acts. There was one duet to have performed at the Eurovision Song Contest representing Spain. As Jordi mentioned, there was also meant to be Joan Manuel Serrat in 1968. However, he famously refused to perform unless he could sing in Catalan.
Yeah, so during Franco's regime between 1936 and 1975, the Catalan language was actually prohibited in things like education, books, newspapers, and magazines, and heavily repressed even in private, like in a transmission of telegrams or phone conversations. So you would understand why it would also be prohibited for a contest like Eurovision that's aired on live television.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think given this context, then you can see it was a really big deal for Serrat, who was only 25 at the time, to take this really principled stance and give up the opportunity to participate.
It's such a shame. It almost feels like a stolen moment for Catalonia. And what happened after that?
Well, as Jordi said, the song won amid heavy rumours of Franco buying votes. By the way, this is in the days before public votes. It was all a jury, so easier to buy votes. The UK's Cliff Richard was runner-up with Congratulations, which you might know.
Oh, it's such a classic. Congratulations.
Co-written by a dairyman, I have to point out. Anyway, back to Catalonia. A year later, in 1969, Catalan artist Salomé won with the song Vivo Cantando. I live singing, or I live to sing. So I guess there was some good karma there for Catalonia generated by Serrat. And that victory in 1969 was actually a four-way tie, which is the only time that's ever happened at Eurovision.
So Spain won twice in a row in 1968 and 1969. However, they haven't won since. But still, even though a lot of Catalan artists have participated in the contest representing Spain, none of them have sung in Catalan, right?
Yeah, but it's worth mentioning that Catalan has been actually heard at Eurovision.
Of course, with Andorra.
12 points, Beth.
Yeah, Jordi told us about his excitement in Catalonia when Andorra, this tiny Catalan-speaking country up in the Pyrenees, entered the contest. Back from 2004 to 2009, it took part. And Catalan viewers could actually vote during the selection process in 2004, which was won by Marta Raura with Jugarem a Estimarnos, Let's Pretend We Love Each Other.
Yeah, and actually 2 artists out of Andorra's 6 entries were originally Catalan, and even one of them, which I think is very interesting, representing them in 2005 was actually Dutch and singing in Catalan as well.
That's super interesting.
Amazing. If the journalism doesn't work out, Gigi, there's your next move.
Who knows? And Catalan artist Gisela in 2008, she actually sung a song called Casanova in English with one line in Catalan. And you guys have to help me here a little bit.
Vull escoltar que tu m'estimes.
Which means I want to hear that you love me.
Oh,
So romantic.
so Eurovision.
And did these Andorran entries make it to the finals, though?
No, they never made it past the semis, actually. And after 2009, they pulled out of the contest due to financial reasons.
Yeah, unfortunately, the only country to have actually participated in Eurovision but never got to the Eurovision final.
Aw.
That's so sad.
It's still kind of amazing that Andorra, with a population that has less people than there are seats at the new Camp Nou stadium, has managed to do what Spain hasn't, which is singing in Eurovision in Catalan.
Exactly.
Okay, so can we have a moment for some honourable mentions of Catalan artists at Eurovision? I mean, which songs and artists have stood out for you over the years?
Yeah, so it goes way back to Victor Balaguer in 1962, right up until Chanel in 2022 with her song Slow Mo, which actually came third. Prat in 1974 has to be one of the most iconic Catalan artists ever to do Eurovision. His song was Canta y sé feliz, sing and be happy. Good message, isn't it?
Amazing message.
Yeah, very Eurovision. And what about you, Gigi?
Well, my honorable mention is Nina in 1989 with Nacida para Amar, which means born to love. And that's one of my, well, actually all-time personal favorites as a Euro fan, because like she has such an amazing deep voice, and I think it's just a great song in general.
Any other favourites?
Well, like if we're talking all-time favorites, I would say Tziti Abuani from Måneskin. They actually won in Rotterdam. And even though the band is unfortunately on a break now after their performance in Eurovision, I became such a fan, and especially of their Italian music. I even went to their concert and I bought 2 of their albums on vinyl.
You're far too young to own vinyl.
Well, it's coming back, you guys. It's coming back.
And for me, I guess in terms of Catalan artists, I'm a fan of my namesake, Beth. She is the first person I've ever heard of in Spain that has the same name as me. So hooray.
Makes it easier for people to know how to pronounce yours, I suppose.
Exactly. Thank you for putting Beth's on the Catalan map. She came 8th in 2003 with the song Dime. It's a really catchy tune, and the video clip is great. It features some of Barcelona's most iconic modernist architecture, including the Sagrada Familia. She dances on the top of it, and she just has really great rastas as well.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. That's so cool.
And I have to confess that I have a soft spot for El Chiqui Chiqui. El
Yeah,
Chiqui Chiqui se baila así.
We have to mention that.
So it's by Catalan humorist David Fernandez. They performed under the pseudonym of Rodolfo Chiquilicuatra, and it did really well in 2008, and it's been a favourite on the dance floor ever since.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Eurovision, would it, without novelty acts like that? This year's favourite is actually a comedy trio from Sweden. Have you heard it? Singing Barabarabastu.
Just sauna.
Just Sauna is the English translation.
Yep, and then there's Spain's entry from Melody. So she's well known here. She's Andalusian, and she became a bit of a child star with her song El Baile del Gorila.
The gorilla dance.
Yes.
I've never heard of that.
You have to check it out. Her Eurovision entry is Esa Diva, That Diva, but it's not really expected to do that well.
Well, she might be going for the LGBTQI plus vote because she's got this gorgeous spangly costume and all this long hair, and the choreography's amazing.
A real diva.
Yes. To hear firsthand what it's like to sing on the Eurovision stage, we spoke with Catalan singer Alfred García, who represented Spain in the Eurovision Song Contest in 2018. Let's hear his perspective on the Eurovision dream.
I'm Alfred Garcia. I'm a singer-songwriter from El Prat de Llobregat, a little village next to Barcelona. And I was born between the river and the sea. You know, my world was surrounded by nature, by water, and by guitars. mostly flamenco and rumba guitars.
Back in 2018, García represented Spain at Eurovision alongside Amaia with Tu Canción, a tender, romantic ballad sung in Spanish. For García, stepping onto that stage wasn't just a performance, it was the realization of a lifelong dream.
Eurovision is one of the most creative. It's the biggest stage in Europe today, and nowadays is an incredible experience to put all your creative and musical art in 3 minutes, and it's like a mind-blowing thing, and for me was an experience that means a lot to me, because was the biggest stage in my career, and was an amazing experience to be part of, and it was like a dream. No, am I dreaming? Today, sometimes I wake up and I think that it was all dream.
Eurovision marked a turning point in García's career, not just in visibility, but in how he views his artistry. While he's proud of that moment, he remains deeply connected to his Catalan roots, recently publishing an album named T'estimo este quiero, featuring songs in both Catalan and Spanish. But does he wish he could have sung in Catalan at Eurovision?
In this song in particular, not bad, because the song is perfect, that it was composed, But for me, it would be an honor to go to Eurovision one more time with a song in Catalan, It will be a dream, and it will be the first time.
Years later, García still carries Eurovision with him, not as a peak, but as part of a much larger story. A dream lived, a memory held, and a stage he might just return to.
Well, that experience is like a post-human experience, because Eurovision is like full of fireworks and screens and lights and flashes, and I love Eurovision, but I'm just a singer-songwriter, and I'm just doing songs in next to the river, and I have a normal life, but it was a great experience to be part of, and Eurovision is one of the greatest stages in the world, and it's kind of cool to be part of. I'm from the family for the rest of my life.
Thank you so much to Alfred García for speaking with us. Tu Canción was a really beautiful ballad, and actually it made me cry when I watched the final in 2018.
Oh,
Beth.
really?
Yeah, and from what he was saying, wouldn't be too surprised if we saw Alfred back on the Eurovision stage at some point in the future.
Yeah, he's a great singer. Gigi, were you starstruck when you were speaking with him?
Well, yeah, in a way, of course, kind of, because I'm such a Eurovision fan, but he was so nice and so, easy to talk to, so starstruck, I don't know, but it was just a really nice conversation in general.
Oh. So coming back to Catalonia, it's a region which has its own language and musical identity, but participates as part of Spain. And although there have been efforts to organise independent participation, there are legislative barriers. Lorcan, what are these?
Yeah, so the Eurovision rules state that only national broadcasters that are members of the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, can send an entry. Not necessarily strictly European countries, as we've heard earlier. For example, Australia has participated since 2015.
Okay, so what does this mean for Catalonia?
Well, in the case of Spain, it means that the broadcaster able to send an entry is RTVE, which is the Spanish state broadcaster, and 3CAT, which is Catalonia's public broadcaster, isn't eligible to join because it's not considered national, as Catalonia is an autonomous part of the nation of Spain, but not an independent nation.
And has Catalonia ever tried to push for their own entry?
Yeah, they have actually multiple times, and 3CAT has actually applied to join the EBU, but was rejected.
Yeah, because in order to become part of the EBU, or even qualify as a member, the EBU's rules say a group of broadcasters from a country with more than one language can actually join.
Like how Belgium has separate broadcasters for Flemish and French speakers.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so it's because of examples like Belgium that the Catalan Parliament decided in 2018 to tell the Catalan public broadcaster to apply for full EBU membership. And TV3 even said that in 2019 they were ready with a plan to pick a Catalan act through one of these selection processes.
Okay, so Catalonia actually got quite far into the process.
Yeah, so this was just a few years ago, April 2019, the EBU confirmed they received this application, but a couple of months later officially rejected it.
Yeah, and upon that rejection, a spokesperson from the EBU in simple terms actually said that the EBU only accepts Eurovision entries from national broadcasters from recognized independent countries and not from regions like Catalonia is.
Yeah, although it is curious that, you've got the likes of Welsh and Scottish broadcasters that are recognised by the EBU, but they're not able to send Eurovision entries.
Okay, and looking to the future, do you think a song in Catalan will ever make an appearance at the contest for Spain?
Well, maybe. In Spain's national selection show, Benidorm Fest, Catalan is starting to appear. So in 2023 and in 2024, there were actually artists that have performed their songs in Catalan. So who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even just a few years ago, 2022, I think, there was a song in Galician that won the public vote in Benidorm Fest. The song wasn't chosen in the end by the jury. In fact, that was Chanel that we talked about earlier that went through to Eurovision itself. But it shows you that songs in languages that aren't Spanish might be selected for Eurovision someday.
And didn't RTV Catalunya take an important step in 2024?
Yep, 2024 was the first year that they broadcasted the Eurovision final with Catalan commentary. So that was a big step.
Every year I'm reminded that Eurovision is so much more than just a musical contest, and especially for the LGBTQI plus community.
Yeah, definitely. It's one night every year where the community feels truly seen, I think. There's just this huge sense of inclusive belonging. It's joyful, it's loud, it's unapologetic.
Well, that's a beautiful way to describe it, Lorcan. And as a proud ally, I've spoken to so many friends about this, and they all say that the whole visibility of it all makes it so valuable. And it is seeing someone on such a huge stage being cheered for and not hidden. It's so powerful.
Totally. Eurovision has a history of being such a beacon for the queer community across Europe. In fact, the first openly gay performer in Eurovision was Paul Oscar for Iceland in 1997.
Did Ireland win that year? It was when we were on our good run. I can't remember Paul Oscar, but I do remember, for example, Conchita Wurst in 2014. She won Eurovision. I guess you remember, drag performer with a beard. Hard to forget, to be honest. And that wasn't just a victory for Austria. It was a victory, I think, for the whole queer community. And at the time, I remember a lot of the context was the fact that Vladimir Putin had passed a law banning children in Russia from learning about homosexuality.
Yeah, and I think we can also say that Eurovision, especially that night, wasn't just a safe space. It was a very defining one.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Eurovision was probably the first time I saw a trans person because back in 1998, Dana International won for Israel. And that was she was an openly trans woman, and that was completely groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah, so Eurovision has its beautiful way of creating a space for people to exist out loud, as some might say, and which for many, it is a lifeline. It says, you matter, your story really belongs here.
Exactly. It's glitter and it's glam, yes, but underneath that, it's pure heart. And it's a space where identity, performance and pride intersect on a global stage. That's almost all we have time for today. But before we go, it's time for our Catalan phrase of the week. Lorcan, what do we have?
Cantar com els àngels.
To sing like the angels.
Exactly, to sing like the angels, to sing beautifully.
What an appropriate phrase for Eurovision.
Well,
maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know, it's pretty angelic. El chiqui chiqui se baila. This week on Filling the Sink, we've been talking about the Eurovision Song Contest. Thank you to everyone who spoke with us, and of course thanks to Gigi and Lorcan for joining me.
Thank you, Beth, and good night, Europe.
Thanks, Beth.
And our 12 points go to...
Catalonia?
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcasts if you haven't done so already. We'll be back again next Saturday with another exciting episode of Filling the Sink. On behalf of all the team here at Catalan News, I'm Beth Cohen, wishing you a great weekend. Fins aviat. Adeu.